Welcome to Dave's Faves, the series where I review games that I think are a cut above the rest, despite their lack of whoopers. And today, I've got a bit of a paradox for you. Not literally, I have a company called Paradox for you. If these people didn't make such good games, I would hate them. The way these guys churn out DLC is enough to make a man die a little inside. Nonetheless, they have made some incredibly time-consuming games. And the one we're going to look at today is my personal pick of the bunch, Europa Universalis 4. EU4, also more commonly known as Paint the World Simulator, is a grand strategy video game developed and published by Paradox Interactive, where you guide a nation through the early modern period, from the Renaissance to the time when that one self-conscious French guy started getting some big ideas. Taking control of the succession of rulers of your nation, you will steer your country to glory through diplomacy, war, development, technology, religion, and the other 10 billion different and somewhat initially overwhelming aspects of your country to manage. The game begins historically as Europe was in 1444, but then lets you take history on a slight tangent, though it will include many historical events that occurred during the game's timeline. The War of the Roses, the League War, the Dutch Revolts, and plenty more. Perhaps the most satisfying part about EU4 is slowly building your nation up over time, watching your borders expand from a meager state to a mighty empire, and the game will also allow you to form other historical nations should you conquer the right provinces. EU4 takes the old adage just one more turn to new heights with just one more year, which I guess could mean either an in-game year, or you could take it more literally, depending on how dedicated you are to not being present in the outside world. Over 500 hours of my life have been sunk into the void in my existence that is Europa Universalis 4, and I don't hold any regrets about it. To be able to go through every single mechanic of Europa Universalis 4 in a moderate amount of depth in a video as long as this would be like attempting to get a secure Wi-Fi connection in Australia. It just can't be done. Though it may look like a turn-based game to the untrained eye, the game actually plays out in real time, allowing you to start and stop time at different speed settings. The game will play out over days, which I guess could almost amount to turns, but in a different sense of the word. Over the course of the game, you will build your nation through a number of different routes. Through war and annexation, diplomacy and vassalization, through colonial conquest and subjugation, or through development and technological advances. Alternatively, if you're big enough, you'll just do all of them and conquer Europe and declare yourself the new Roman Empire or something. Whatever all those Euro snobs like to do back in those days. So you'll either find glory as a grand empire on the European continent, or you'll get subjugated by another big ass empire, or get partnered under a personal union by RNGs. There's a fair bit of RNG in this game, dice rolls in battle as well as the random events that occur throughout your game. I'd be less inclined to say that RNG is as overbearing as it is in a game like Darkest Dungeon or other RPGs, but it's there and can certainly affect the proficiency of your run. At a first glance, this game is slightly more than overwhelming. There are numerous tabs and buttons and indicators and everything. If you just jump headfirst into this game, you'll have a hard time initially understanding what's going on. There are so many different modifiers and stats for you to manage: your stability, monarch points, national unrest, diplomatic reputation, aggressive expansion, republican tradition, subject liberty desire, discipline, missionary strength, colonial range, mercantilism, inflation, papal influence, estate loyalty, and to be honest, I'm only scratching the surface here. You may need to play a couple of games, or at the very least start a few games, before you really know exactly what is going on, because it's easy to have absolutely no idea what you're doing. Once you do get a hang of it, however, you will discover the absolute joy of a good grand strategy game. This ain't your regular strategy rebel, no, you're playing with the big boys now. Arguably the most important part of this game is diplomacy. Much of the successes and failures of your nation will depend upon the relations you have with the other nations around you. You will need to set rival nations to avoid penalties, and your rivals and the nations that rival you will not get along with you. You can also secure alliances with other nations if your relations are good enough, and will be obliged to help each other in a defensive war. War is also a very important part of the game, as this is generally the most accessible way for you to expand your borders. Early game, there are a lot of small nations, which makes war a little quicker and easier, though late game there will usually be fewer yet much larger nations, making diplomacy and war a lot more complex. One gripe I do have with this game is that it's really hard to stop a nation when it gets really big. Unlike CK2, where big empires are fairly easily collapsible, it's pretty hard for a big nation to collapse without being ganged up on and beaten in multiple wars. Though I do feel that the game has a very satisfying progression of complexity in terms of the diplomacy and warfare that generally takes place throughout the game. Many of the wars that happen at the start are small and unimportant, whereas the later wars are often spread across continents with much bigger frontiers. There's heaps of other things for you to be managing as well, such as your trade economy, your relations with your subjects and the estates within your country, or expansion through other means such as colonization. Colonialism is understandably a pretty big part of the game considering the time period it emulates, and the game allows you to send colonists to vacant land over in regions such as the Americas, Africa, and Southeast Asia. You can earn colonists and other bonuses through ideas, which are unlockable as you progress through the technology tree, which also allows you to unlock other bonuses like new unit types and boost to the plethora of your country's modifiers. And look, I'd love to be able to go over every single mechanic for those of you who still have no idea what I'm talking about, but I really don't have the time or patience to do it. But I can say that while this game is so overwhelming to the naked eye, it is so incredibly hard to put down once you get going. Just one more year, just one more province, just one more trade war with England. The game just leaves you wanting more, and I don't know if it's Paradox playing on humankind's lust for European dominance, but damn, this game is addicting. The biggest place this game stands out is in its replayability. Not only is there an insane amount of nations to play as, but there's just so many different paths for you to go down in this game. Not even just how you can manage your country, but what you conquer, what your campaign goals are. The replayability factor is insane. This is further amplified by the achievement list for this game. Some of them are really obscure and weird, but certainly set a precedent for what is actually possible in this game. There's no specific winner in EU4. I mean, there is a score counter, and technically, yes, a country will be at the top of that, but there's no specific goal you need to obtain, no you win screen at the end of it. You're given the freedom to make of it what you will. The game does hamper you in a few ways, such as with the aggressive expansion mechanic, which can certainly be an annoyance, but it does prevent you from being too overpowered, especially early game, and keeps a nice balance of realism. It is old history, but still relatively realistic nonetheless. And with common updates and patches, Europa Universalis 4 is a game that hardly manages to feel stale, though it can be a bit of a strain on your wallet. As I mentioned earlier, if the games that Paradox made weren't so good, I would despise them. Unfortunately for my wallet, games like EU4 and CK2 are heckin' amazing, and I give them a lot of money. Paradox releases updates for these games fairly regularly and kept them alive and fresh for plenty of years now. And while that may sound pretty good, pretty much all of these updates are accompanied by a DLC expansion pack. And a lot of the time, the key features of the updates, and in some cases the features that prevent the game from breaking, are contained within the expansion packs rather than just the free updates they roll out, which is a little bit scummy to be honest. Fortunately, there are fairly regular sales for Paradox games on Steam itself as well as on the Paradox store, so sometimes it's worth just waiting a little bit and buying up some of that delicious DLC all at once. But it really is a bit of an annoyance, and I can certainly see people being turned away from the game because of it, not even considering the overwhelming complexity of the game to a new player anyway. But you know, game devs need more money, blah blah, running costs, blah blah, excuses for big companies to take more of our money and it's okay, blah blah, but I still love the heck out of the games. And I mean, not all of the DLC and expansions are particularly necessary, plenty of them are just unit skin packs and music packs, which you can easily get on the cheap when they're all on sale. Plus, there's no exclusivity aspect to it. It's not like you need to buy these skins now because they're limited edition or whatnot, or any of the DLC for that matter, which I can credit Paradox for at the very least. Visually, the game looks pretty damn nice for a strategy game. Strategy games aren't always exactly known for breaking the budget on graphics, and I don't think that EU4 is an exception, but it still looks relatively nice. The actual map itself can look good and also be functional with a number of different map modes, a default terrain map mode, the one that shows the actual countries themselves, and other supplementary ones such as the Holy Roman Empire map mode and religious map modes and such. I think that functionality and as much clarity as possible is important in a grand strategy game such as this, and to Paradox's credit, they've done a good job in this aspect. The menus and interface can feel a little hostile at first, but once you familiarise yourself, they're pretty well streamlined and easy to navigate. The units on the map also look pretty damn cool, and you'll see them advance from late medieval to early modern as they ditch the spears for guns, and there's slight variance in each of the nation's units. The game also has a nice soundtrack that goes about its business in the background. It's nothing super fantastic, but it's memorable enough for me to whistle along while I'm playing. There's also a few music packs as DLC as I mentioned earlier, and some of them are pretty neato. I particularly like the Guns, Drums and Steel soundtrack, and there's even a Sabaton soundtrack if you're so inclined. Overall, obviously as a history fanboy, the aesthetic of this game makes me a very happy whooper. In the end, Europa Universalis 4 is a game that leaves me feeling very satisfied. Obviously sometimes I goof a little or get screwed over, but it's a game where setbacks can be temporary. There's always plenty of time to recover and bounce back. It's something that you can tell a story about. Some of the crazy things that happen are super interesting, and there's always an entertaining recount of the alternate history you've created. At first, it's overwhelming, and the in-game tutorial isn't the biggest help, but after a game or two you'll start to get the hang of it, and when you do, it's hard to let go of it. The amount of replayability coupled with just the insane amount of paths for the game to go down is a surefire way to guarantee you'll be back for more. And look, no whoopers, sure, but they were only discovered in 1999, which is outside of the game's timeline, so I guess it's tolerable. So if you've got nothing better to do with your life and want to escape the dreaded reality of living, Europa Universalis 4 is a 100% Devo certified way to waste your dreary existence. Thanks for watching this episode of Dave's Faves. Hope you enjoyed this review of EU4 and this insight into another game that I actually enjoy. This video was meant to come out at 2500 subs, but I have grown way quicker than I thought I was going to lately, and it's taken me way too long to make this video. Partially because of how long it took to get footage for it, but nonetheless, thank you so much to everyone who's subbed to me over the last month or so. 2500 subscribers was initially the goal I set out to achieve by the end of this year, so to see that I've broken that target this early and I'm on my way to more than double that tally is absolutely amazing. As always, I really hope you guys are still watching and enjoying my content, and I'm sorry that it's been a little sparse lately, but I promise to keep bringing you guys as much content as I can. It's tough working full time and doing this on the side, but I love doing it, and I love getting comments and interactions from you guys, so I'm not going to give up just because life's getting busy. So thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in when I hit 5,000 subscribers for the next episode of Dave's Faves.